All right, and good evening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Autist Circle, number 9. Today we're talking about Rembrandt van Rijn.
Yes. Oh, and that is hellaciously pixelated on my end.
Oh, snap.
I just looked over at the OBS screen, and it's just like, here, have a blob.
Oh, man.
All right, let's see if we can fix that here.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
We good?
We should be less blobby.
Okay. Let's turn my, I can turn the stream source up, too, if we need to. Make sure the resolution stays.
Okay,
if it starts getting funky with you, let me know. But anyhow, so we are today talking to Rembrandt van Rijn, one of the great Baroque Dutch masters, considered to be the greatest by some. But yeah, I will jump on in here with.
Well, as we jump in, I think it's something that we probably should be willing to point out that there were some doubts when we started on this of just how good he was.
That's
And,
yeah. When I first started, because they're just coming off of Rubens and Bosch before that, people who put a lot of really fine detail into stuff, and who, especially Rubens, who was so meticulous about his portraiture, and everything was so clean, that when I started looking at Rembrandt, I was a little off put, honestly, because his technique is so different. But then the more I dug into it and the more I've looked at his work, I'm like, oh, I really do I have started to love it. And although I do think Rubens is still better in my own personal heart, I think that Rembrandt is a brilliant master and has well earned his spot as one of the great Dutch masters, and also as one of the greatest painters. People who paint really love Rembrandt because they see his technique and how much work he's put into it.
mm-hmm.
So, gotta let this picture load because it's a big one. There we go. So this is a self-portrait of Rembrandt. He did over 80 self-portraits during his time, in various poses through various stages of his life, and it is primarily because he's his own, he's the most readily available subject he has. So drawing himself in different poses and painting and doing whatever with different poses helped him refine his portrait work.
Okay.
So start out here, Rembrandt Harmenzoon, which is son of Harmen van Rijn, was born July 15th in 1606 in Leiden, the Netherlands. His father was a miller and his mother was a baker. His family wasn't they weren't super well off, but they were well off enough to send him to private school.
Okay.
Yeah, so he didn't they weren't super wealthy or anything like that. They had a little bit of money. They were hardworking. He came from a hardworking family.
Okay.
So they sent him off to Latin school as a kid. And about the time he was 16, he decided that he wanted to paint. And so he started training with various people, various masters there in Leiden. And eventually, when he was 19, he opened up his own shop in Leiden, his own studio, and was doing portraits and stuff. And that was so because he was in the Netherlands at the time, which was a Protestant country. And Protestantism wasn't as heavy into the iconography of the Catholic Church. So they didn't have grand murals in their churches. But then at the same...
go ahead. I think it's worth pointing out that the architecture While you did have a lot of older cathedrals become Protestant cathedrals, uh, a lot of the newer churches were a little more austere, less as decorative, just as a very symbolic break between some of the gaudiness of the Catholic Church and the Protestant Reformations.
Yeah, exactly. Protestantism was very much a rebellion against the excesses of the Catholic Church,
Correct.
and I think that the Protestant ethic at the time, where they were austere and hardworking, kind of not to say that Catholics weren't hardworking, but they were austere and industrious, like that WASP work ethic, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's also that's where Puritanism comes from, stuff like that. So it's so by and large, the churches there, they didn't. It's not that they rejected it, but they just didn't have it in the churches. It wasn't a big deal.
It just culturally wasn't as symbolic, because they're one of the understandings I've come to over the years is, with the Protestant churches, there was a slightly higher degree of literacy for a lot of the audience that it was trying to reach. So they were able to teach the word of God with actual printed word and spoken word, rather than just through artistic expression. Now,
right.
That's a very broad statement, but I think it's one worth pointing out.
Yeah, and it's it's a very key factor, and I think it's a really key difference between not just Rubens and Rembrandt, but of course Rembrandt and all of the Italian artists, because the Italian artists were all patrons of the church at some point. It was because the church ran so much stuff. Like the famous the Italian masters, I should say. But in the Netherlands, the vast majority of the work was civic, and it was a lot of portrait work. Rich nobles or wealthy burgermeisters or whatnot would want to have their portrait painted, and they would search out somebody like Rembrandt to paint them. Now, one of the things that really set Rembrandt apart was his technique. And I'll cover that right before we go into here. I'll finish up with his history here. So,
Okay.
In 1625, he started his own studio in Leiden to mix success. In 1631, he moved to Amsterdam and lived with an art dealer there, and started establishing himself in Amsterdam and making a name for himself there. In 1634, he married Saskia von Ulberg, who was the cousin of the art dealer. And the art dealer was fairly well off. Her family was fairly well off. So they married in 1634 and had 4 kids. Only one of them has survived to adulthood. Of course, it was the 1600s. There was actually an outbreak of the plague again in the 1600s. But, of course... and I did some research on this. So, in a lot of these old, like stories, they'll say, "Oh, someone died of the plague," but there were only isolated bubonic outbreaks outside of the 1300s, right? Because that's when the Black Death happened, was the 1300s.
Correct. Yeah.
And so there were some resurgences of the plague in small places in the 1600s, but in general. Because, they said, some of Titian's kids died of the plague. Generally, it just meant typhus. So...
okay.
If they...
Which...
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Because it was a quick... Rubens' 12-year-old child died of, quote-unquote, the plague. So it really is...
it's basically a shorthand for they got something, they died from it. We weren't entirely sure, but it was pretty nasty.
Yeah, usually it was a fever. They died from a quick fever, and that's what typhus does. Typhus gives you a quick fever, and then that kills you. So I'm sure there's more to it than that. I'm not super, so his wife, his kids, and of course, the kids died young all the time. But he had one son, Titus, who grew up to be he grew to adulthood
Mhm.
with his first wife. Then he Saskia actually died in 1642 of, they think it was tuberculosis, and it was a really big impact on him personally, because of course he loved his wife, and they had lost 3 of their 4 children, and not like stillborn, but like lost when they were young, and so it was thought that combined with the stress of losing all the children, just combined with the toll it had taken on her body, caused her to get sick and die. So then after she died, he ended up hiring a woman to come in and like be a nursemaid for the kids, help with the kids, and her name was Geerta Dirks. And she was a caretaker for a long time with and they were never married, but it was kind of assumed in a way, right?
So that common law marriage kind of thing of that age.
Yeah, kind of, but plausible enough to where he's like, she's just my housekeeper. But so then he started fooling around with a younger girl,
As one does.
Yeah, he later had a kid with her, but he's fooling around with her, gets caught, and this woman's pissed, and she sues him for like breach of contract and a few other things. So she sues him and wins alimony from him, under the condition that she doesn't sell any of his works and a few other conditions. She can't sell any of his paintings or any of his paint or anyhow. And at some point, she violates the agreement that was set out by the courts, and so he actually worked with her family to get her committed into a fucking woman's house, right? So like a woman's reformatory house, right? Like they had back then. So he had her committed, and she stayed there the rest of her life. It's like,
interesting.
Man.
So she really found out the FAFO of the Dutch Republic.
Pretty much. She did, yeah. So, but throughout this whole time, like Rembrandt had, he of course make paintings, and a painting would sell for about 1,600 guilders, depending on the painting, but large ones, But he lived kind of an extravagant life. He was very bad with money. He would loan money out to his friends, and of course not get it back. He was also a collector of antiquities and antiques. He liked Roman antiquities and stuff.
Weirdly familiar,
right?
Hello, Mr. Rubens.
Right. What the difference was is that he could actually, Rubens could actually afford his collection, and Rembrandt kind of compulsively collected. So he would come into money, like when his mother died, he would come into money, and instead of paying off his debts, he'd just buy more shit. Until eventually he just, he was painting and making money, but he never had any. When he died, he didn't have any money. He was broke when he died. He was buried in a rented grave. And they don't know where his body is now, because with a rented grave, it's kind of like a storage unit. You can't afford to keep paying the rent. They just clear it out and make room for somebody else.
Yeah, and considering how common that was, so he's basically scattered to the 4 winds by this time.
Yeah, and it's been he's so that's his journey, which is really kind of an interesting and tragic one. It's a life of like it's a very passionate life, and one lived very gregariously, I believe, and so he knew he was a great artist at the time too. He was just really shitty with money. That's really what it comes down to. But with that said, I'm going to zoom in on the painting here of his face, because this is really it's really demonstrative of his technique, that is really different from Rubens. And let's see, as soon as it zooms in here, there we go. So
it's kind of reminds me of Van Gogh a little bit here.
It does, and it's more so. Rembrandt is very much a predecessor of the Impressionists, Impressionist movement, and their Impressionist painting style. In that, they didn't work to hide the brushstrokes, and so as you can see in this, the paint is just kind of smushed on there. It's really thickly put on there. He painted with a technique called impasto, where they just kind of slap the paint and they put it on really thick. But then also he took the more Caravaggio or Caravagist. He worked with chiaroscuro more than some of the other painters, in that he started with the dark and then layered the light on top of it. So he was bringing the light out of the dark.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so
that explains. Yeah, just looking at some of the brushwork from a distance and also up close, or there for the background, it's like these big, broad, very noticeable strokes.
Yes, and you know, I mean, so from a distance, it gives a very rich and warm and textured feel. Of course, because that's what it is when you zoom up close to it. It's a very rich, textured feel to the picture. In fact, some of the paintings, they've scanned some of his paintings. The paint is up to 1 centimeter thick on some of his paintings. So he is just really laying it down there. So
interesting.
With that, I want to jump into the first one we're talking about here, the first piece of art we're talking about here. And it is the anatomy lesson of Dr. Tulp. So this was painted in 1632 when he was just 26. It's a big painting. It's very large. It's 5.5 feet by 7.25 feet. It was commissioned by Dr. Tulp and the Guild of Amsterdam, or Guild of Surgeons in Amsterdam. So back in this time, they were starting to learn, like, medical science was just being advanced. They were learning so much during this time, and because it's like a pre-Enlightenment period here, where they're really trying to educate themselves through exploration of science, and that's what this is a scene of. They often did dissections were often public, and usually they were done on criminals. This guy is a criminal in the painting here. So they would take criminals, execute them. I think this guy he was a thief. He stole something. In the original design for the painting, he drew him. The guy's arm was cut off. His hand was cut off, so he doesn't actually have his left hand.
Fascinating.
But Rembrandt painted one in there.
Huh.
So, which is why and so the body looks a little short because of the perspective of it. That's been seen through a lot of other portraits. Usually, and an interesting thing at this point is that, so usually the only people that were depicted as dead in paintings was Jesus. You know, it wasn't common for people to depict corpses. You know,
that's
outside of religious works.
I'd be curious to see where this. Probably for fame. This is a very famous portrait because of that. But I'd be curious if there's any other, very explicit kind of Christian era art, which say after 300 AD for when that would develop. If there's any other examples of a cadaver being not necessarily dissected, but just having the dead portrayed as being dead in them.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I'm sure there are. It would be super interesting to find out. So that might have to be something I look into. But so this was commissioned, like I said, it was commissioned by the Guild of Surgeons. Oftentimes, these guilds or tradesmen that had guilds, they would pool their resources and be like, okay, we're going to buy this for our guild hall. And so they bought this painting, or they had this painting done to have it, to hang up in their guild hall. It hung there for a long time. It's currently in the Mauritshuis, I'm not sure. I think it's Mauritshuis Museum in The Hague. This was his first major group commission, because prior to this, he had done like portraits, pictures of himself, pictures of other people. People were like, "Hey, come draw me," because that's how he made them. That's how you made the money, working in a studio. But these guys came to him and they said, "Hey, we want all of us in this painting," and the way he did it to make sure that all of their faces are visible and recognizable, I think is really fascinating, because every single face in this painting is distinct. And they're all easily distinguishable. And really, it's because of the way they're arranged. They're kind of, these guys, they're arranged in a pyramid kind of fashion.
Yeah, and yeah, you can see the vaulting and the architectural backdrop is very much playing into that.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because you can see. So these guys aren't looking at the surgeon. What they're looking at is the surgeon's hand, and they're looking at the surgeon's hand because the surgeon is demonstrating what these tendons do when you pull them, and you can see this on the finger. So zoom in here. You can see on the hand there's a slight curl on the finger there, of course, when he's pulling on the flexors. But then Dr. Tulp's hand is demonstrating what would actually happen if when those muscles are tensed, and that's such a it's a fascinating detail. That, and that's why these guys, they're not looking at, they're looking at his hand to see, this guy is looking directly at his hand, and this guy's looking maybe up more at the doctor. Then,
with the exception of the second guy from the left and maybe the guy at the top, everybody's eyes are on that hand.
They are. And these guys are kind of looking out to the crowd, kind of like looking out at you as the observer, which realistically would track, because these things were done in a theater. There would be observers. There would be people that they were paying attention to. And the detail in here, I think, is just really interesting, that he's got this guy back here with the anatomy notes. And then there's the book up here that they're also looking at to get information. It was one of the pieces that that helped him really announce his presence, because of course it was a huge painting, and it was done in a very public. It was put in a very public place, the Guild Hall. That's where they would come to. That's where in the Guild Hall of the Surgeons, so everybody could admire it.
And just a little note that I found. So if you look at the hand of the cadaver, there's this extra little white line, and for the longest time it was thought to be an artist's error, but there is there's a tendon that is not always visible, called the abductor digiti minimi. And it's like not always visible, but it is part of the connector tissue. So it's like, was that a mistake or was that on purpose? That's a curious thing.
See, now, and I think that because I think he actually did put a lot of meticulous detail in his paintings, right? He wanted to make sure that he got detail like that. And so I would fully believe that this, and this is probably after him witnessing an actual after him watching these guys do this himself anyways. Of course, he attended the theater several times, and they always would because they want to check, like this was a good way for artists to learn anatomy and to learn how the body moved and stuff like that.
Because there's so many art courses now where it's learning the musculatures and all of that detail of human anatomy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This is like the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
Only in reverse.
Yeah. And another cool detail here is that he made the criminal's belly button into an R. Rembrandt, subtle R on there. I mean, you notice it once you see it, it's like really apparent, but you don't notice it at first.
That's awesome.
And I think I don't know if this was one of the ones. So in his early career, he signed his paintings as Rembrandt without a T or without a D.
Yeah, I see that up there at the top. Yeah, it's just Rembrandt.
Yeah,
without the D.
And the D was added later as he went on in life. But this was it was one of the paintings that really put him on the map. And as we look into it, like especially when you look at this painting and think that he didn't start, like he's not moving light to dark, he's moving dark to light. So he's built up all these dark tones, and then he's building up these white faces on top of it, and the highlight, and the it really does have that kind of Caravagist chiaroscuro shadow to it, where the shadow makes the main characters the focus of the painting.
And also just that level of subtle detail in the background.
Yeah.
And just again, that's very Caravaggist in a lot of ways.
It is. So with that, let's hop over to the next one here.
Yes. Otherwise, we'll do what we always do and start going over.
Right. So this is the storm on the Sea of Galilee. And what it is, it's a depiction of the Bible verses from Matthew 8:23, chapter 8, verse 23 through 27. And he went onto the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, "Save us, Lord. Save us. Oh, save us, Lord. We are perishing." And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid, O ye of little faith?" Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was great calm. And then men marveled, saying, "What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" So this is his depiction of that. And this was his first and only seascape painting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because not just because biblical allegories and stories are amazing because they're very vivid and brief in their description, so you can draw that out. But the fact that this is just such a good seascape, and even again you can have that layered dark to light.
Yeah,
just really pop.
It is such a, I think it's such a dynamic and vibrant scene. I'm going to say this was painted in 1633, while after he had painted that, and so he was coming up on the rise, this was a private one, so someone commissioned him to do it. This painting is 5 feet by 4 feet, so it's not small. It's a pretty good sized painting too. And it has some interesting history because this painting was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. There was some big art heist that happened there in 1990. They stole a couple of Rembrandts and I think a couple of Renoirs, and they've never been seen since. So this painting is currently missing. If you
So if you have it hanging up and your parents are a little cautious about how they got that reproduction, there might be a reward.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was again, like, so it's a depiction of that scene from the book of Matthew, and the detail in it is actually like from a distance. So you look at it from a distance, and of course you get a very good sense of what's going on, and there is a little bit of asymmetry, but the light coming through the clouds hitting the ship in such a way really draws your eye towards the center of the painting. And then from there, you can dig in more on the details and see. So, of course, here's Jesus down here at the bottom of the boat. Here's the depiction of them waking him while the sea is the sea is raging.
All right, I admit I really appreciate the seasick guy at the bottom below Jesus.
This guy down here, yes.
Yeah, it's like, that is such a great depiction.
It is such a good detail too, because like seriously, there would be a dude puking during a storm, right? Like, I would be that guy puking during the storm. That was the thing. So it's a really cool, fun detail. And the action, I mean, of course there's a lot of action in here, but everybody is doing something. Of course, these guys are beseeching Jesus for his help. This guy's running the till. This guy's freaked out. This guy's puking. And this guy's like, holy shit, as he's looking at the camera, like, oh my God, what's going on here? The guy holding onto the rigging here. He's looking at it.
You know?
And if you notice, it's Rembrandt.
Yeah, I was about to ask if that's who I thought it was.
Yeah.
So. It's interesting. He's always, well, not always, but it seems like he might be doing these self-inserts, and it's like he's the guy breaking the fourth wall, essentially. That's awesome.
So, oh crap! Yeah, my Discord's. I think my Discord's making noise. Anyhow, get that out later. So and because he was so familiar with painting his own face, it was really easy for him to insert himself into paintings and stuff like this. And when you needed to have a variety of faces, that's a good way to do it. Just throw one of your random images, your random faces in there. Plus, not everybody's going to notice that.
Yeah. It's subtle. What actually gave it away for me was his actual face staring right back at me. Oh, yeah. It's that guy.
Yeah, he's looking right back at you in the painting. His depiction of the water and the ropes and everything. Of course, he includes all this really amazing, intricate detail with the ropes and the rigging, and the splash of the water. It's a very dynamic painting, and it gives you a good sense of, like, it wasn't just a regular storm that they were that they were going through. It was like an actual, the sea was raging. They had reason to be afraid beyond just like, oh crap, this is just a regular storm. And so,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a true tempest.
Indeed.
I'm trying to make out on the flag if that's a cross or an R.
I think
because now my brain's trying to see R's everywhere now.
Right. I think it's a cross.
Okay.
But I mean, it's hard to tell. And of course, why would you have a cross on the freaking flag for the ship of Jesus? But if not, symbolic, symbology. And one of the things that I really loved painting when I was painting was sky. Obviously, I mean, my ship was all space and stuff, but like just the daytime sky and clouds was a really fun and interesting thing to paint, because it gave you a lot of opportunity to do highlights and lowlights and really bring out sharp details. And I think he's done such an amazing job with this painting. And
one thing that for me stood out right away are the rays of light when they come past, the mast
Yeah.
coming down to the ocean behind, because it would be very easy to skip that, or just, oh well, that's too much work, and just leave it out.
Right.
But the fact that that's there speaks volumes to the level of care that Rembrandt is taking with this. Although
Yeah.
I will also say, seeing a harpoon for the Sea of Galilee is a little weird, but he probably didn't know any better.
Yeah. Well, but it's like I was saying, that crap, I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
You're welcome.
But that level of detail and stuff like that and the light. So that's why they called him the Master of Light, because he followed his light sources very well. And it was said that in his studio he had a large mirror, or not mirror, a large window, like a big tall window, and he would put a cloth on the window to get the light how he wanted it. So if he wanted a high angle light, he'd put the cloth so that the light only came out at the top. Just, I feel, a kind of a smart and kind of an interesting and innovative way to do his painting.
That's interesting. Yeah, because although I also always have to wonder with that level of detail, it's would the piece, whether it's Rembrandt or Caravaggio or Glissenti, Gentileschi, sorry,
Gentileschi, yeah.
would that look different in their studio than it is in the art museum?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that's why, like, frescoes and stuff are so much different than, like, the way they look is so much different than, like, regular portraits in a lot of ways, because they knew how to use their light better. Your portrait can be hung anywhere in the house, and we'll see. But in the cathedrals, they knew exactly what their light source looked like. So,
Yeah. I don't know. It's just something that popped into my head, because we're talking about technique and his, how he painted. And it's like, if you took this and recreated his studio exactly, would this canvas be that much more intricate, or have different plays on light than we see in a museum?
Oh yeah,
I would love to find out.
Yeah, I think if he did it today, it would be a lot different.
It'd just be
all
AI,
art, right? Yeah. So, oh, that's depressing. But this, again, like you were saying, the light on it really, this painting specifically shows a really great use of the dynamic lighting and the light coming through the clouds and like the light breaking through the storm. It's a hopeful light coming through, even though the scene is very tempestuous and chaotic.
And I do feel the necessity to point out, apparently that is a hook for handling nets or fishing baskets. So
okay,
that makes suddenly a lot more sense than it being a harpoon.
Yeah. Yeah, like a gaff. Looks like a gaff.
Yeah. I'm not used to one that big. So anyway.
So with that, we'll move on to the next one, which is Belshazzar's Feast. Ooh. So this is a depiction. This was painted between 1635 and 1638 when he was around 29. It's 5.5 feet by almost 7 feet tall. And this was another one painted for a private patron. It's currently in the National Gallery at London.
Okay.
So this is the biblical story of Belshazzar, which I'll read the story of it here. I wrote it down. So the story of Belshazzar and the writing on the wall originates in the Old Testament book of Daniel. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar looted the temple in Jerusalem and stole sacred artifacts such as golden cups. His son Belshazzar used these cups for a great feast, where the hand of God appeared and wrote the inscription on the wall, prophesying the downfall of Belshazzar's reign. the text on the wall says, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. Biblical scholars interpret this to mean God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. You have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Your kingdom is given to the Medes and the Persians.
That's one hell of a paragraph that's been reduced to roughly 4 words.
Yeah, it's been a lot. So this was written on the wall, and the woman immediately to his left, the terrified woman there, is the queen. And in the story, the queen advised Belshazzar to go get Daniel to interpret this. And so Daniel interpreted it to tell them that. Basically, God has condemned your kingdom. And it might not be exactly in those words, but that's what the allegory of it is meant to be. So the writing, normally Hebrew writing's left to right, and this writing is up and down, which was an interesting stylistic choice. He at this time he owned a house in the Jewish section of Amsterdam, and so he was familiar with Hebrew.
And he should have known better then.
But this was aside from being just a really interesting and cool depiction of the story, there's a lot of like amazing rich detail in here. And again, although this painting is it's been weathered and dulled due to age, there's still a lot of really amazing and extravagant detail in it. So,
and just the looking at it here, it's the amount of yellow pigments that he had to make for this is wild. That's right. Blowing my mind, honestly.
Well, and it's meant to, because normally these people wouldn't be illuminated this way, right? They would be illuminated with a different light, but because the light is coming from the words on the wall, the hand of God. So this is an interesting story too, because that's also where the phrase "the writing on the wall" comes from, as a term of like impending doom. Like when people say, I see the writing on the wall, that means something's bad. Something's coming to an end, and this is where that came from. The writing on the wall here said, your kingdom is going, God is giving your kingdom to the Medes and the Persians for your sins, basically. Excuse me. And so
that's just, it's fascinating because you've got, again, that Caravaggioist influence, which eventually I'll get the term right, but Chiaroscuro, yes.
Chiaroscuro or Chiarosco. I don't know. Tenebrinism. The shadow, the use of shadow. It, of course.
But it's great in this one, especially because you have kind of the warning from God here, just this bright, blinding light for everyone there,
right? And
then all the darkness, just because of the need for the contrast. Honestly, I'm really impressed by this.
And the light is so well done because, and I say this because his face the light would be illuminating the other side of his face. So of course this side of his face is darker. But you can see the edge highlights on the nose, which is just a really, I think, a masterful observation, and it lends to the realism of the scene. Of course, while these people have the direct light from the on their faces, and so the light on their faces is much brighter. This guy down here has a much more shadow cast on his face, and the looks on their face, like the looks of terror on their face, is really well done too. They look genuinely worried and scared. That's of what's going on, which is natural because, like, the hand of fucking God is appearing out of nowhere and writing glowing shit on the wall. That would be terrifying if you weren't expecting it.
and just also like, Fafo, my friend.
That's really what this story is. This is a story of Fafo because it was they went in and looted stuff, and flaunted it using the gold cups, which you can see in the painting here, the gold cups. Flaunting it and saying like, "Hey, this is ours," or whatever. This is mine. You can't do anything about it. Blah blah blah. Get banned. So it was another biblical scene, and I thought was a really great one that highlighted his use of light, and his use not just his use of the light, but his ability to direct it in the proper ways. Like he understood light and how light works. And then the fabric and all the stuff here, like the fabrics and the finery and everything is done so well. Like even if you zoom in, you can see the pink around her eyes.
Oh yeah, it's like if you the pink around her eyes, the ragged teeth of the guy beside her, and the creepy individual in the background staring at the audience.
The person playing a flute in the background. Now, that would be someone, because if they're having a big feast, they're going to have musicians there.
Yes, but would the musician be staring directly at the viewer? That's or is that another self-insert?
It's I personally think it's a brilliant use of the light to show to have the people in descending values as they go back, intensities of the shade as they move back.
And okay, so there's a really neat detail. So the woman on the right is spilling the water or wine or whatever on her dress,
on her arm,
and you see the color change.
Yeah,
that is brilliant.
Yeah, that is. She's spilling the water, the wine, whatever on her dress. It's a brilliant and dynamic detail. And it's one of the things that's like kind of his hallmark, because he gets those really smart details in there where it's like, oh, holy shit, that's happening over there. That's crazy. I wouldn't even thought of that. And that is a really great lead into our next piece. I'm going to spend a whole ton on this one because the next two pieces are really big. So we're going to jump over to the Night's Watch. This is another one of those civic paintings that was done for civic engagement. So it was commissioned by the Captain Franz Bannock Koch of the civic militia. They had a different name for them, but they're arquebusiers. And it was like the militia at the time, and they commissioned Rembrandt to do this painting for them for their guild hall. So this painting is 11 by 11 feet. It's huge. And it depicts, of course, the captain.
Hold on. Was it Colveners, I think they called them for this time period? Yeah.
Yes.
I just there's a subtle difference in the weapon style, and if we had Bezic here, it would be a 10-hour stream.
Yeah, but they were the really, these were the militia. They were the ones that guarded the city, because they didn't have it wasn't like a giant central government. There was tons of little militias in the cities that helped just keep track of stuff. So
if I remember right, in this time period, they were somewhere between a police force and a small private army for the defense of the town.
Yes. And there's a lot of callbacks in this painting, not just to, it's not just an obvious depiction of the captain and his lieutenant and his company. There's a lot of little details and nods in here to the company itself.
Like the woman that has a chicken on her belt. Exactly,
because the chicken, or the hen, it was a hen, or not rooster, it was a rooster, was like a symbol of their order, especially the hen's claw.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
You can find some scattered throughout here. But there's a few things that I think are. There's a couple of details that I think really jump out when I mean, first off, when you look at the painting, you see the captain spreading out his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like the captain's reaching his hand towards you, and then also the angle at which his lieutenant is holding the partisan. It kind of makes it come out towards you. So that, I mean, it looks like it should be coming out of the painting from that angle. And same with his hand, like his hand is reaching out. It looks like it's reaching out of the painting. But the shadow, like the shadow of the hand cast is down here. I mean, so you can see where the light source.
Wow.
Yeah. That's like such a phenomenal detail to capture that shadow like that.
Oh yeah, I mean that is such an interesting thing. And then the arc booster behind the lieutenant.
Yes.
The angle of the barrel and things like that, just catching the light just enough.
Yeah, it's just catching it right at the edge. And again, this shows the people, getting kind of less bright as they're more in the background, like you would normally see. Yep, there's the girl with the hen, as you mentioned. But there's 3 different arquebusers in here. So there's this guy here, and it looks like he's powdering. He's putting powder down the end of it. And then the guy immediately behind them is clearing it. He's clearing it.
Actually, no, what he's doing, because these were matchlocks.
Yeah.
He's keeping the spark in the long match.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's blowing on it to keep it lit.
Yeah, that
which
makes
is
sense.
really cool.
Which was an important thing for them to do. Right.
Yep.
So for the arc, so he's depicted the 3 kind of steps that it takes. So powder, fire, whatever. So, which I think is an interesting detail that he's got those in there. And then, of course, there's just more and more detail as you dig in on it. This crest up here has a bunch of people's names written on it. It has the company members' names actually written on it. And,
That's cool.
I believe this is one of the ones where he signed it with a DT. So he started this in 1639 and finished it in 1642. And then I think shortly after that, it was before his wife passed away. But she passed away in 1642. So the painting itself, there are 34 distinct characters in the painting. Each one of them is different. So there's a little, like, I don't know if she's supposed to be a midget or a kid down here.
Yeah, that's a curious character.
And then each person, is clearly and uniquely depicted. Now, as you get to these guys that are farther in the back that have a little less, so I don't know if you recognize that face, but it looks a little Rembrandt-y.
Yeah.
And then, as I understand it, the drummer was like one of the later details added here too. The drummer wasn't originally going to be in the painting, but they added him in here. And so this painting,
well, although, is there any history with the ghost dog?
I didn't see
Did
anything
he get
about
painted out?
Yeah, I didn't see anything about the ghost dog, or I didn't. But it's it's like a weird little detail in there, and this painting it used to be brighter. Like you look at this painting and it seems like, oh, this is a picture done at night, but it was not supposed to be done. It wasn't supposed to be like such a dark piece. It's darkened over time a bit.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the original title of the painting is The Militia Company of District 2 under the command of Captain Franz Bannock Koch. It wasn't called the Night Watch until later, after it started getting a little darker and people looked at it. It was like, wow, it's the Night's Guard. It's like guards at nighttime is what it looks like, and so they called it the Night's Watch.
So it could have been a daytime scene and
It could
just
have.
aged up. Yeah.
And there's lots of there's lots of depictions of the militia and the military then in daytime scenes and stuff. But this one, and even though it's not, and it's really just because of the dark hallways and everything in it, the tenebritism, the chiaroscuro use of that the darkness to highlight the figures. So, running on down, we've got 5 minutes left. We'll jump to the last one.
The last one. Yes. Ah, yes. I feel like a cigar.
Yeah. This is the Syndics of the Drapers Guild, and this was commissioned in 1662 by the Drapers Guild, which was a guild of... They had a Catholic, a Protestant, a Mennonite. It was a wide panel of people. It was a civic organization and it was kind of a governmental organization. What these guys, the guild, would do is they would certify fabrics and certify, like, I don't know, thread count and stuff like that. They would grade your fabrics, and if your fabric was a high enough grade, they would take a little like lead button that was about the size of a penny and attach it to the fabric. And that was like your stamp of quality for the fabrics.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
And so these guys came to Caravaggio, or not Caravaggio, Jesus Christ, I'm looking at them. These guys came to Rembrandt and wanted something for their guild hall again.
Mm-hmm.
It was commissioned by the guild hall. These guys are called, they're the Stahlmeisters, or fabric samplers.
Mm-hmm.
There's 6 guys here. They're all individually. They were part of the guild. Jacob van Loon, Wojciech Jans, Wilhelm van Doyenberg, Frans Hendricks Bell, Eamont van de Meer, and Joachim de Neve. So each one of these guys, and they're I should say that's left to right.
Okay. At least we figured out where they are.
Left to right. So what this is scene depicting is these guys are sampling this fabric on this cloth here against the sampling book here, and they're testing it. And one thing that I think is interesting about this scene is that it almost looks like you're interrupting them.
Yeah, because that hand of the guy in the center is kind of like, really, you're walking in now, buddy?
Yeah, it was like, and this guy's standing up, and all of them, they're kind of like, they have a look on, especially the guy standing up. It's kind of like you walked in the room and the floorboard creaked, and they're like, oh, what? Oh, okay. So they and again, this was later in his life. Because he died a year after this. So I feel like much in the way of we saw with Titian in his later life, you start seeing the brushstrokes getting a bit rougher and more less precise.
The details are kind of hazier but more intense.
Yes. I think they're less precise but more deliberate. Is how I like to think about it. So really, he's done such a great job of capturing the light on these guys' faces. And this guy over here must have been a very interesting looking gentleman in real life.
It's putting it mildly.
And like the look on their faces, especially this guy's face here, his face is a look of interest. It's a look of like, oh, hey, what's that? Like and it's not like, it's just kind of like, oh, hey, what's going on here? You know, like you're interrupting him in some way, and he's not upset, but he doesn't know exactly how to feel.
Yeah.
And I think
it's that kind of, when you're in the midst of writing something, somebody comes into your space while you're working on it and just clears their throat, and you're like, what? Why are you here?
Yeah, kind of like that. And I think that's what it was meant to be. And so this, I mean, of course, it was hung in the guild hall. So when you walked
Mhm.
into the guild hall, you were greeted with this right there. Kind of similarly to, you walk into the chapel and there's the fresco. You walk into the
Mhm.
guild hall and you're greeted with this. You're seen by, like, these guys are sitting here looking at you saying, hey, can I help you? In a way. But they're also busy. Like, they're in the middle of doing something. They're working. And they're very intent at it. I think it was really, it's like an intimate scene that we are being brought into, as an intruder in a way, but
Mhm.
not necessarily an unwelcome one, I think.
Yeah, unexpected, perhaps.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So,
Just something about Rembrandt that I've noticed is there's so many of the faces, especially in this one, but overall, where there's this almost recognition of the audience, which I find fascinating.
yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I started out on the Rembrandt journey thinking like, he's not as good as Rubens, but he does such an excellent job of capturing emotion and
Hmm.
capturing subtle details on the face, and his technique is so. I mean, his technique builds up the image to you and kind of just puts it in your face.
Hmm.
And we're
Yeah, I'm
we're at our hour now,
ah
so
yeah.
we ran up against our hour. So we'll have to.
Well,
Well, guess we'll kind of have to leave it off there unless you have. I'll give you some final thoughts on this, Bleach.
I'm just kind of like you. I went in thinking, okay, Rembrandt. We all know the name. Maybe, yada yada yada. Is he really that good? And yeah, I have to say he is. He's maybe not as intense as Rubens is, or
Yeah,
Gentileschi with the fabrics, but it's still very much a live scene that he's been, and that's something, Bosch, while I still love Bosch, it's very flat,
right.
where this is very, you really understand the depth of what's going on and the actions that are happening, which is great.
Right. And I tried to find him. I've tried to find a Judith painting, and his one Judith painting, one that the painting is thought to be Judith, is also thought to be a portrait of somebody else, and so it's not definitive that it's Judith, and so I didn't include it. So
We're breaking the Holofernes
Right.
story arc for now. Oh boy.
I'll try to get one next week. I will make sure to have one next week. And on that note, next week we're doing Jan Jordans, who is I think he's going to be the last Dutch master we do for Baroque before we move on to Albert Beerschot. But Jan Jordans was an amazing Baroque artist in the late 1600s that did some really amazing work that shows influences of Rubens and Caravaggio and Rembrandt too. So tune in next week for that, folks, and
Same time, same stations.
and we'll see you then. I hope to see you. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And
And if you've got artists that you'd like us to consider, find us on our comments or Discord or wherever.
Yep.
Yeah. So
say link to my
we might
Discord
laugh at it, but
yeah. So link to my Discord is in the description here. Link to Bleach's channel is in the description here. Link to Trim, who did our avatars, in the description as well as a link to the presentation. So if you'd like more information about anything, check out the links in the presentation. And other than that, we're gonna sign off. So